Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 76. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we are on the horizon of the Pittsburgh Steelers Wild Card game Saturday night against the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh underdogs in this one, looking to break a losing streak both in season and over the postseason. No victory since 2016. You guys know the story there. So big show to recap today and go into this game, make our picks, all that fun stuff. Want to thank Josh Carney for filling in on the Wednesday show for myself. Got that flu bug going around, still sound pretty terrible. Cam Hayward plays through the flu a whole lot better than I do, Dave, as you referenced at the top of the show. So thanks for you guys filling in and bear with me today.
Yeah, we certainly will bear with you. Glad to have you back. Thankful to Josh Carney for sitting in for you the other day. Yeah, you sound almost back. You don't sound completely back though, but I know you've been working hard throughout this, and obviously we've broken down the Ravens a couple of times already this year, so there wasn't a whole lot of tape study, I don't think, to do over this one. Overall, but obviously a big game Saturday night against the Ravens on the road. The Steelers, I think, still 9.5 point underdogs in this one. Busy day on this Friday. The Steelers will obviously be traveling, I think, to Baltimore. We have the annual All-Pro, AP All-Pro selections coming up here in a couple of hours from now at noon. So we'll be writing about that. And we've had, got obviously injury report and a couple of transactions to talk about for the Steelers here.
Yeah, so let's dive on in. Let's start with the transaction standpoint of the housekeeping part of the show, and Pittsburgh making a roster deletion yesterday, waiving/releasing veteran wide receiver Scotty Miller. And I presume we'll talk about it. That's going to make room for some offensive line help with Mason McCormick's status in question with that broken hand for this weekend. But Miller, who played sparingly, probably best known for him being the emergency holder in week one after Cameron Johnston got hurt, had bounced between being active and inactive, had played some 13 personnel, 5 catches on the season, did have 1 big catch downfield against Cleveland. Seemed to always be a favorite of Russell Wilson, but no huge role for Miller, and so he seemed to be the most expendable guy to get the axe.
Yeah, and all of this seems to revolve around the fact of Mason McCormick in that hand. The team is going to need 8 offensive linemen dressed for this game to take advantage of a 48-man game day roster. They currently only have 8 offensive linemen on their 53-man roster right now. Calvin Anderson returned back to practice. Was that earlier this week, I think?
That was Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Seems like, and he ended the week listed as questionable. He would probably be the most. We'll see. I mean, you got a window. You could go a lot of different directions in this. But the fact that they opened up a 53-man roster spot makes you believe that you will see Calvin Anderson go from IR to the 53-man roster prior to game time happening. Maybe this move will happen later today. Maybe it'll happen Saturday prior to 1 o'clock there. But regardless, Scotty Miller was more than likely going to be inactive anyway. So this leads you to believe, especially with Mason McCormick being banged up, that we'll see Calvin Anderson to the 53, and probably no way around it. You're probably going to see Mason McCormick wind up on the inactive list, I think.
Yeah, that seems to be my inclination too. Spencer Anderson spoke to the media yesterday, and he's the one who would get, be in line to start if McCormick did not play with that broken hand. McCormick said he was going to go if he went without a cast, and I don't know how well that would really work either and how effective he would be if he did have a cast, because it's going to be on his left hand, that inside hand. So That's probably the right read on things, but we'll get some finality, including on Anderson himself, who had been on IR with that groin injury, probably by Saturday. But I think that's how it's going to go. They'll sign Anderson and either have McCormick inactive or just have Anderson there in case, based on how McCormick looks in warmups.
Yeah, trying to figure out this inactive list. Obviously, you expect Kyle Allen to be inactive as the third quarterback. More than likely, Mason McCormick inactive, or at least one of these offensive linemen, if indeed Anderson comes to the 53, is going to be inactive. I tend to lean towards McCormick right now. We'll see which way that goes. But and then Dean Lowry, probably inactive. I mean, that's three, and assuming nobody comes up from the practice squad, you're going to need five inactives. And kind of parsing through the rest of the injury report here, it's him, it's him questionable, obviously, or Mason McCormick questionable, Spencer or Calvin Anderson questionable. You've got three guys ruled out that are not on the 53-man roster, so none of those guys are going to get activated in Roman Wilson, Cole Holcomb, or Logan Lee, so you don't have to worry about those guys being on the inactive list at all. But it is a bit curious of which way this team will go with the other couple of inactives. Will you see Preston Smith maybe inactive again? And will this team dress all of their cornerbacks for this game? That's going to be something interesting to watch. And if not one of the cornerbacks, then could you see a guy like Isaiah Loudermilk along with Dean Lowry being inactive? So it's going to be very, very tough from a strategic standpoint to try to figure out the rest of the inactive list. But I'm feeling pretty confident that three of those guys on that list will be Kyle Allen, Mason McCormick, and Dean Lowry. And then going to be interesting to see how the other two play out there.
I know against the Bengals, Pittsburgh didn't dress two defensive linemen in Loudermilk and Lowry, but I think against a Baltimore outfit, the number one rushing team in football, you need to have your defensive linemen. I think in this game, you prioritize more, especially because Baltimore does not have Zay Flowers, prioritize the D-line, the front, more than the secondary. When you played the Bengals, you were a nickel personality sub-package type of game. So that's why Pittsburgh leaned more on going heavier on the secondary. So we'll see. But I think only one D lineman, likely Lowry, will not dress.
All right. Then which way would you lean as far as maybe a member of the secondary? Because Preston Smith, probably a good chance he's going to be inactive. So that makes four inactives there. You still need one more.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that one to you to figure out, Dave. I don't know. I mean, Pierre's got the Haddis to Gunner. Dante Jackson's going to play, so that deductive reasoning only leaves you with Corey Trice, as unappealing as that sounds, given that, he started and you've like some of the things you've seen out of him. It just may be odd man out.
Yeah, but wouldn't you kind of want, with the personnel, how much time do you think they play in this, and, could you use a guy like him to help out with a tight end type situation here? So it is going to be they've got some interesting decisions coming up here. That's for sure. I haven't decided which way that will go. I'm kind of hoping for Corey Trice to dress, to be quite honest with you.
Do you have any thoughts or feelings on Roman Wilson being out despite, he's healthy. He's practicing full since, returning last week, and Cole Holcomb, Logan Lee were full all week as well, but also ruled out as they remain on their injured lists. There's still a lot of chatter. We get that every week, with Wilson. Why not activate this guy? But he clearly is ready to contribute from probably a health standpoint. There's questions about conditioning and trust and all that kind of stuff. But did you have any consideration to, what did Arthur Smith say? Burn the boats. Why not burn the Roman Wilson boat?
Well, how do you find the roster spot, and how do you get them active? That's the hardest thing here. If you did wind up making, and obviously it's not going to happen now, he's ruled out, but I just don't see how you find a roster spot. Even cutting Scotty Miller, waiving Scotty Miller, he was likely going to be inactive anyway. So I don't know how you find a roster spot for him, and more importantly, I don't know how you get him active because of needing 48 guys dressed.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think the counter to that would say, are you going to get into the minutia of some of the inactive and active spots versus like who could help the team win? I'm not losing a lot of sleep over Roman Wilson not being available this week. Even if he's not going to be the reason why Pittsburgh wins or loses this particular game. He still play behind all the receivers that have been playing the majority of the snaps throughout the season. But I just wanted to get your temperature because he has been practicing some, and if there was a time to try something, then of course it's for your postseason lives.
I think the best case scenario, and obviously it's only if they are able to beat Baltimore, is at least you get yourself in a position that should another wide receiver wind up getting injured or something like that in this game, and you do advance, he's ready enough where you could put him back on the 53-man roster. And obviously with not having Scotty Miller in there, and you would think that maybe you hopefully get Mason McCormick back, and then that would allow you to shuffle some things and maybe move Calvin Anderson back off the 53-man roster, that kind of stuff. But I mean, we're in territory of these kind of things being based on the Steelers beating the Ravens Saturday night.
Yeah, and listen, whenever Wilson and those guys, Holcomb, Lee, returned to practice, my thought was not, okay, they're coming back to be the cavalry to reinforce this team down the stretch. It was, hey, they have these IR to return spots for at least the Wilson and Lee open. Let's use them. Let's get young guys some practice. And if it does happen or a situation arises where they can come back or injuries require them to come back, then great. But to me, it was really more about letting them get some practice reps in. They have something to build upon for their sophomore years, more so than it was about them trying to help this team down the stretch. I know that's going to frustrate some. I hear that, but that was always my expectation and thought whenever the news was announced. And it's really, I think, playing out based on those guys practicing in full, but being ruled out.
Yeah, and look, I think we have a lot of people still at this point, because I see it on Twitter, that are kind of confused about the whole inactive list thing. On game day, if you want to dress 40, you at max you can dress 48 guys to play in a in a game, and you can only maximize and use 48 and have them dressed ready to play if you have 8 or more offensive linemen dressed ready to go for a game. And obviously, if you have a 53-man roster, or if you elevate guys from you can elevate up to 2 guys from a practice squad to make it technically a 55-man roster, you still can only dress 48 max in total. So your inactive list every week, assuming you have at least a 53-man roster, must include 5 at a minimum inactive players, and as many as 7 depending on how many elevations that you have. Now, the whole one of those inactive players can obviously be a third quarterback deemed an emergency quarterback there. But people think that the inactive lists are only built around injury list. It goes beyond just the injury list. You can only dress, once again, a max of 48 players for a game, assuming that you dress 8 of those 48, 8 of those offensive linemen are dressed for a game as well too. So that makes that's why we get into all these discussions about the pregame and postgame about the inactive list, because there are decisions to be made here, and it also factors into things like what we're discussing here now with the whole Roman Wilson thing. So just want to kind of clarify that it's there's a lot of minutia that goes on into just, okay, Roman Wilson's healthy, why can't you get him some snaps in this game in particular?
Yeah, no, that's a good explainer. I know it's some of the minutia, but it is important to know to navigate some of these conversations. But just overall, big picture, Steelers health standpoint, they're not in a bad place. Dante Jackson will return. Michael Pruitt had that knee issue, which he's battled throughout the year, limited early in the week. He's going to play in this one. Everyone else is going to be good. Cam Hayward was full after the flu bug, got him going into that Bengals game. Chris Boswell did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday with an illness, but he has no game status. So maybe he caught what Hayward had, but it seems to be that flu bug was maybe mostly contained, knock on wood. And so he's going to kick. And of course, Pittsburgh's gonna need him. So that's where they're sitting. Baltimore, their big loss here, as Harbaugh announced on Thursday, wide receiver Zay Flowers, their top receiver, their Pro Bowler, he will not play in this game. But beyond that, they are a pretty healthy bunch. Kyle Hamilton will go, and Justice Hill will return after, I think, missing that Week 18 game. And so he's going to be the less talked about Ravens running back, but their pass down back and a good receiving threat.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here heading into this game for both sides is the Zay Flowers being ruled out. That's their top wide receiver in receptions this year. That's a big component of what they do. Not having him this week certainly helps the Steelers out. And we'll get into, maybe how specifically schematically that kind of helps out. But anytime a team doesn't have their leading pass catcher for a game, it's a big deal. And rolling back to the Steelers one last time, if you remember, the last time these two teams met, the Steelers obviously did not have Justin Fields for this game. He was inactive with that abdominal injury. George Pickens, it goes without saying, not having him was huge for that last game. He'll obviously be back. This team did not have Deshaun Elliott, which was big for this. They did not have Dante Jackson for this game, and Larry Ogunjobi was also inactive for this game. So, they'll obviously have all these guys back for this game, and that's pretty big. And also remember that Joey Porter Jr. got knocked out of this Ravens game kind of early with his injury there too. So the Steelers figure to be a much healthier bunch, especially on the defensive side of football. And it goes without saying, having George Pickens on the offensive side of football means a lot as well too. But the Zay Flowers thing is going to be interesting from the perspective as you're taking away. They're not going to have their leading pass catcher.
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be significant. Now they can overcome that because they have all these other weapons and talent, and there's other receivers that can step up, and of course a tight end tandem, etc. But losing 1,000-yard playmaker that Flowers is, who had 2 solid games against Pittsburgh, had a touchdown in the one matchup and a 100-yard game in the other, that is certainly going to be a loss for them. And it was such a weird, innocuous looking play that happened on that screenplay against Cleveland, which just kind of got rolled up on. I thought, he bruised his knee, maybe he's out for the game, he'll come back for the wild card game, but no, not going to be the case. And so Pittsburgh will benefit in that sense.
Right. What this allows the Steelers to do, obviously, that look, they should have Aguilar healthy for this one, I believe. They've got other guys, but it allows you to concentrate it on Bateman. Let me just ask you straight up: do you have Joey Porter follow Bateman around in this game and just let that be pretty much a one-on-one and try to take him away schematically, let Joey Porter handle that, and then just try to manage the rest of the weapons from there?
Yeah, I would. Largely, I would play your best guy on their best guy when they're missing their number one, and try to take the receiver element out of it a little bit. So yeah, I would. Don't overcomplicate things. They're missing their top receiver. Let your top corner shadow their number 2 for sure.
And then that allows you maybe a little bit more, helps with the focus of obviously shutting down Derrick Henry, because look, if Derrick Henry's able to run downhill like Derrick Henry likes to do and start keeping the defense on the field and get into the later stages of this thing, much in the same way that kind of we saw in the second meeting up between these teams, and really any game in which the Ravens really start pulling away from teams, you see Derrick Henry start wearing down teams. And the reason the Steelers were able to win that first meeting against the Ravens, they were able to strip the football away from Henry early in this one. The Ravens didn't get Henry, the kind of touches that you would kind of expect in that first meeting. They definitely rectified that the second meeting of this team. But having one less guy in Flowers to have to worry about in the passing game, isn't a slam dunk. Well, that's it. That's the tipping point, but it certainly does help, especially when you're focused. And I'm with you. I would put Joey Porter on Bateman, try to take him out of the game, and then I'd really think hard of how you're going to handle guys like Andrews and Likely, because if you go down the list of priorities in the passing game with them, not having Flowers, that's a huge check mark off of this. Then you go Bateman, you let Joey Porter handle that. How you handle Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are in the passing game are the next biggest things, deciding factors in this game, because obviously either one of those teams, most specifically Andrews, can take over these games. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, they've got Justice Hill back for this game, and that's a component in the passing game that needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah, and he's a guy that obviously in that Week 11 game where they threw that wheel route to him and Peyton Wilson made that incredible play. And so Peyton Wilson's going to be the answer to Justice Hill. I think Porter should be the answer to Rashad Bateman, who's a talented receiver who's averaging a touchdown every 5 receptions this season. Crazy efficiency. And then I think Mika Fitzpatrick, you'll see on Mark Andrews quite a bit. Now I'm probably oversimplifying things a little bit, but that's kind of the general framework of this game in terms of, defining matchups and trying to play your best guys and best counters against their top weapons.
Right. And then obviously within all that, you got to guard against Lamar Jackson.
Right. And Derrick Henry in the run game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Can I just backtrack really quickly? I wanted to ask you one question from this Bengals game. It kind of relates to cornerbacks and matchups. We talked about the game plan with Joey Porter Jr. following T. Higgins and Corey Trice on Jamar Chase. And, when I watched the tape, maybe it was the fever that I was experiencing, but it didn't feel as messy as I felt live. The touchdown was bad. I thought they left Trice on an island. Unless Trice, he might have needed to have inside leverage there and kind of gave it up, but still really tough spot you're putting your young corner in against Jamar Chase, no matter what his leverage is. Beyond that, I don't think it really hurt them a ton in this game. They did certainly have an idea of keep a lid on things, keep things in front, don't let Chase get over the top. When you went back and watched the tape, did you hate that decision? Or did you dislike it as much as you probably didn't like it watching it live? Or what were kind of thoughts on how they dictated those matchups?
I mean, with Trice and all, I did. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at the end result there, and Josh and I talked about this the other day as well too. I thought Trice did some good things, specifically in coming up and tackling in the run game. And if you look at the explosive play aspect of it, once again, I don't know. I can't remember if they changed one of those plays to from 20 to 19 yards, but they held that offense without an explosive play. If I would have told you that before the game with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, obviously Joe Burrow and Gesicki and all the weapons that they have, whatever manner that you got to that you did not allow an explosive play in this game has to be applauded, I think. And then you look what they were fairly good on third down there, and did outside of that first drive, really where they moved the football down the field. I didn't hate it as much, and plus also, it was great experience for a guy like Corey Trice. That's why I'm kind of intrigued that especially with Dante Jackson and his back issues and all like that. And also you got a real physical team and big guys like Andrews and obviously Derrick Henry. Do you maybe consider, if you did need that extra defensive back to be inactive, man, do you think about sitting Dante Jackson down and putting Corey Trice out there?
Would I personally do it? I don't know. That's a fair question. I don't think they're going to do it because you find a way to split time between those guys. But I understand your standpoint of just getting the inactives and getting all the right hats out there and all that kind of stuff. So
okay, then what about Cameron Sutton? Maybe how important is it to have a guy like him? For the snaps that he's probably going to play in this game.
Well, let me give you an unpopular thought. Would they sit Beanie because he's playing less than Cam Sutton, and they're gonna like right or wrong, and Sutton has obviously struggled and not exactly a fan favorite right now, but they like Sutton's versatility and wearing more hats than what Beanie can do, who's really just playing in dime packages, which is still barely being used right now in Pittsburgh.
Sure, and where did we see kind of some matchups won in that last game against Ravens? Andrews on Beanie, didn't they get that singled up a couple of times?
I know Likely caught one on Beanie the one time. I'm not sure if
Maybe
Andrews
it was
did
Likely.
on
It
that
seemed
corner
like
route right
maybe
sideline.
Andrews got him once too.
He might have.
On an out route or something over there. Uh, you look at the size factor there. I guess you know who and
Because you play
Aguilar's
Trice in dime situations too, is what I'm
right.
kind of getting at, and that gives you some size and maybe put your best cover guys out there on the field and give you maybe some sub package versatility. Maybe you have some run or base things where you're putting Trice in base. I don't know. I mean, I'm just spitballing ideas. Just probably using too long on inactives, but it's a good thought. I think.
Right. I mean, what kind of matchups ideally do you like Beanie Bishop on the field for? Personnel, packages, and situations.
I mean, his role right now is basically just dime defender. So he's just in 3rd and 7 plus in those rare moments where Pittsburgh uses it, and they're using it less frequently than they have, where they're staying in their nickel more often with Wilson on the field. And they probably want Wilson out there a lot in this game to face Justice Hill on 3rd and long to have make sure they get somebody to run with him. So that's really become Bishop's role. Now, some of that might be when you face these top end quarterbacks, as Tomlin has said, and Mahomes and Burrow, you got to have a variety of coverages and calls. And so they're playing their veteran guys out there. Again, right or wrong, Sutton's not exactly providing a lot of value despite being a veteran. But I could see that. I could see maybe you talk about that odd man out at DB. I wouldn't be shocked if Beanie Bishop was a surprise, quote unquote, inactive for this game.
All right. And it's not like he helps you out a ton on special teams, Beanie, right?
Right. Guys like Pierre certainly have more value than that. But anyway, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Trice matchup in that Bengals game. I still think it was a little unusual the way they divvied it up, but it didn't seem to be as consequential as I thought it might. Although, of course, you say that knowing the touchdown on that opening possession that Bengals had was put Trice in a really brutal spot.
Right. How do you felt after going back through it again? How did you feel Trice played in that game?
I mean, I think he was hanging on. I mean, it's a tough matchup, obviously, for a variety of reasons. I can't say he played well, but I mean, you take your lumps. As you said, it's a really good learning opportunity. Not that I'm putting him out there just to learn in that kind of game where Pittsburgh really needed a victory. But yeah, I thought, he's physically he's gifted, and he fell in the draft. He's a 7th round guy, not because of a lack of talent, not because of a lack of size, athleticism, ball skills, physicality. It was all the health related type of stuff. And so you see the tools there. I think he's going to need work on technique and just, understanding situational football and all those kinds of things.
What is your number one concern in defending the Ravens offense in this game? It's got to be Henry, right?
Yeah,
especially with Flowers, not going to play.
Even if Flowers was playing, no matter what the situation is. I mean, Henry just ran for $160 plus on you. Last time they ran for 220 as a whole. You have to minimize him first. And if you can't do that, nothing else matters. Pittsburgh's entire foundation, it's a steel curtain. They stop the run and everything else flows. And yes, you want to get after Lamar, but the whole phrase to Carl Dunbar, and it's a common one, is you have to earn the right to rush the passer. And that means winning on first down. That means they got to be better with their run fits and they got to be more disciplined and more gap sound in this game. They got to tackle better. And they did in that loss to Baltimore. So it all starts with King Henry.
All right. Is number 2 on the list the mobility of Lamar Jackson?
Yeah. Then it goes to Lamar being able to contain him and have him kind of show some of the regression and less stellar performances that he's shown prior to this past Baltimore Pittsburgh matchup. So it starts with the backfield duo for sure. It starts, Henry 1A essentially, and Lamar 1B.
All right. What's 1C, or what is number 2?
I think Mark Andrews. And I think some of these things, someone was talking about this yesterday, I think on the fan. And sometimes you could talk about, okay, who do you have to stop big picture? But then it's also situational. On 3rd and 7, okay, Derrick Henry's going to be not my concern,
right.
but it might be Mark Andrews. And what he's doing in the red zone is incredible right now. So sometimes it's about the global aspect of who do we have to stop, but then once you get into the game, it's okay. The situational, who do we have to stop? Anytime you're going to be in a third down, any red zone situation, I'm watching Mark Andrews. I never kind of get into the Ravens preview of it, but Dave, he's got 11 red zone touchdowns this year. That leads the NFL. All its touchdowns are in the red zone. He scored a touchdown in 6 straight games, including against Pittsburgh in that Week 16 defeat of Pittsburgh. And so that's the guy you turn towards. And that's why you probably see a lot of Minka on him. And I think Minka's going to have to play better in this game than he did that previous game.
All right. And obviously, if they're, whatever the situation is, if they're getting 4, 5, 6 yards or more on first down, you're going to stay in this giant loop, right?
Yeah. So it's blouses its game.
Right. Okay. Let's see. We got a lot of the minutia knocked out before we kind of get more into the game breakdown. I mean, it goes without saying this is a big game for the Steelers. They're 9.5 point favorites, and all of the pressure is on Mike Tomlin. Specifically, he talked earlier in the week about, that's his bag to tote, that's his baggage to tote, and all like that. But you're either going to get your first playoff win since 2016 season, or we're going to be back in this cycle of no win since 2016. Yeah, but a winning season, yada yada. How much pressure is on this team? And obviously TJ Watt looking for a playoff win, and he talked a little bit about this and all, but I mean, how big of a game is this?
It's incredible that between Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Lamar Jackson, they have as many playoff victories as MVPs and DPOYs combined, 3 each. And so that's just kind of a wild stat. What was the stat? Like, was it you or maybe Adamski tweeted it? Baltimore, Pittsburgh are 2-10 in the postseason since 2017. So something's kind of got to give here. To answer your question, though, there is pressure, and yet there's not pressure because no one expects Pittsburgh to win. So I think nationally, there's like no pressure on Pittsburgh. They're playing with house money. They're on the losing streak. They're just considered to be one and done, all for valid reasons based on Baltimore, one of the hottest teams in football, Pittsburgh, one of the coldest teams in football. All the stats we'll talk about here shortly. Internally, though, yeah, I mean, you're really feeling it. I mean, to not only have this losing streak extend, but then to have it extend against an AFC North rival, would be even more difficult. So there's pressure, yes, but then I also kind of think about, okay, what is the consequence of that pressure? Where if you're feeling pressure, that usually means, okay, something negative may happen to you if you fail. And what happens to Mike Tomlin if he loses this game? Well, he's going to be back in 2026, and same with the guys that you had mentioned. So it's hard to really detail that. The answer is kind of yes and no to there being pressure. But I know there's been a lot of angst in that building and around this fan base and between you and I with this team not winning a playoff game. And if that continues, then that frustration and angst will only build.
Why is this a 9.5 point game, 10-point game at one point?
I mean, like I said, Baltimore's the hottest team or one of the hottest teams in football, and Pittsburgh's one of the coldest. Baltimore has not allowed more than 17 points in a game over their last 4, and Pittsburgh has not scored more than 17 points in a game over their last 4, that kind of stuff. So they're at home, obviously, and they're firing on all cylinders, and Pittsburgh's like that car gif that you love tweeting about that car falling apart. So that's why the line is the line.
All right. Where do you want to go to with from here?
Anything from Arthur Smith and Terrell Austin when they spoke? I don't think a whole lot was notable from either. I know Arthur Smith was asked about Justin Fields, and that's where he kind of used the burn the boats reference. Are you expecting to see Fields more? Do you want to see Fields more? What are your expectations?
Oh boy, I don't know about expectations right now. And you read some of the things some of these beat writers are putting out there. Wouldn't expect to see that. I think situationally, especially in some shorter yardage stuff, that you have to definitely consider putting him out there for a handful of plays. Would I like to see him out there? The short answer is yes. I think I think to keep them honest, maybe to help spread things out potentially in the running game, even if you just have Justin Fields hand the football off. I would like that aspect of it, but it just gives him something else to think about. And look, I mean, Justin Fields, the use of his legs can certainly get you a first down in a much needed moment of this game. So, yes, I would like to see a Justin Fields package used however you deem it, whether it be short yardage, whether it be every fifth series, I don't know, but I would like to see it. Am I convinced that we will see it for more than one or two snaps? If that, no.
I know there's always going to be a twinge of the right situation and circumstance to these types of things, but how do you not play Fields in this game with your offense being so stagnant, with this run game struggling? You're facing the number one run defense in football by far in Baltimore. I just don't know how you wouldn't deploy everything in your arsenal, even beyond just the 3rd and 1 that maybe happens to arise, use Fields. I think you want to even expand that package more for Fields this week. Maybe some 1st and 10, some play and 10 to start a drive. I just don't know how I don't have an exact snap count to put on him, but I think, if you had to kind of guesstimate what I'd like to see, 10 snaps in this game for Fields.
That many, huh? I mean, I wouldn't hurt my feelings, obviously, depending on situation, but you do have to burn the boats here. This is anything that you have that you think that the Ravens might not be ready for, you need to utilize in this game.
And they're probably ready for it to some degree because they face Lamar and, not scout team, but, they're just being a Lamar based team, they're aware of the quarterback run threat, but like it's just about what can your offense do to do something different and find some traction, especially with how tough this Ravens front is. It's not like you can run the ball on these guys with your traditional run game and expect to have a ton of success. You probably won't. Nobody does. And so you got to get creative in how you try to achieve some ground game movement, and I think Fields is the way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, and look, like I said, didn't have him in that last game. I do think you need to try to utilize them to some degree, and it will be interesting. It will be a talking point after the game, win, lose, or draw. Obviously, can't draw this one, but to how much and if they should have used it more, and if they did use them, the kind of success that they did have with it.
Yeah, because if not now, when? This could literally be the last game you have Justin Fields as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Very, possible outcome. So you utilize this guy, go down swinging. I don't want to go. I don't want to leave this game going, man, we just tried this, but we should have done this a little bit more. Again, if you're playing with house money, you can go for broke.
Yep, absolutely.
Anything else from the coordinators? I don't think anything else really stuck out to me, but you probably know it a bit better than I do right now.
Nah, not that really stuck out, overall. I think to some degree he said, no, he doesn't think the offense is predictable. And that, look, we haven't got much out of these coordinators all season. So why start now?
Yeah. Any thoughts on, and we'll probably save this if the season does come to an end for next week's show, but players playing in their last game. And I bring that up because Najee Harris spoke with the media and talked about that. And they basically said, he compartmentalizes and you can't ignore it, but you're just kind of focused on the task at hand. I just go back to, I made the point before, Dave, last year's pending internal free agent class was weak, and that's being charitable with Mason Rudolph and Miles Killebrew and Armand Watts and those guys headlining the list of pending free agents. This year's crop is a much different caliber type of group with Najee, with Dan Moore, with who else? I'm blanking on something. But of course, the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Not necessarily to say these are all stars, but just in terms of the impact and the weight and the snaps that they played this year for Pittsburgh is a big kind of a change. So, any thoughts about what Steelers could actually be playing in their last game this weekend?
Oh, well, definitely. Let's see. Let's go over the list real quick again of the more unrestricted or the unrestricted guys and the guys that are set to void the contract. Mike Williams is just, his contract voids after this year. Isaiah Loudermilk is, I believe, an unrestricted free agent. Dan Moore Jr., Ben Skoranek, unrestricted. Lesser names here. It's CJ Henderson, Calvin Anderson, Max Sharping, James Pierre, Tyler Matakevich. You mentioned both the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Going to be a lot of talk about that. Cameron Sutton, probably playing his last game. Michael Pruitt, Van Jefferson signed veteran benefit contracts. Even Kyle Allen's the third quarterback. Scotty Miller's gone now, so you can take him off the list. DeMonte Casey, unrestricted. Najee, obviously a big name. Landon Roberts, a guy who talked about he'd like to be back, and a guy that we've talked about you'd kind of want to see back. Nate Herbig, his deal's up already. Obviously spent the season on IR. Dante Jackson, acquired in the trade early, prior to the season. He obviously could be his last game. James Daniels spent most of the season on IR. Those are your unrestricted guys. So a lot of these guys you're not going to bat an eye at. But you do have some notable names on there. Obviously, we expect Dan Moore to be elsewhere next year. The quarterbacks we'll be talking about. Najee Harris we'll be talking about. Landon Roberts we'll be talking about. And we expect James Daniels to be gone, and Dante Jackson, unless you can bring him back at a extremely cheap or minimum price, probably gone as well too. So those will be the highlights of the list right now.
Yeah, and I know we'll have a whole off season to talk about who's going to come back and who's not, and who gets replaced and who should get replaced. And there's a healthy mix of all the above on that list of names there. But I just say that to say that each year brings change, and the Steelers team, no matter what happens, is going to look a whole lot different in 2026, just based on the sheer volume of free agents that are pending.
Right. And Najee was asked yesterday during his stand-up presser about, potential of being a last game. And, he said, look, it's a business. He didn't sound overly positive, but, stranger things have happened. But it does feel like if indeed the Steelers lose this game, that this could potentially be the last one we see Najee in a Steelers uniform.
Yeah, I always like to take your temperature of things, Dave. And again, I know we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. They have not lost this game yet, and we'll talk about, their odds of winning this one in a little bit. But what are the odds that Najee Harris does get a new deal done for 2026? 2025?
I'm not very on, especially you see kind of the landscape of what happened this past offseason with running backs around the league and some of these guys switching teams and some teams finding more value and actually going out and paying some running backs, and not that Najee Harris is a top guy. And then as a caution to the wind, you got to look and see what the New England Patriots did with a guy like Ramondre Stevenson and how that really essentially kind of blew up in their face, if you will, the amount of money they're paying him versus, him fumbling. But Najee's not a fumbler by over time, and even kind of date back to his college year. And he's also a guy that stays on the field for you. This guy is yet to miss an NFL game, so he's got the durability aspect. There's probably a team or two or three out there that says, look, in the right system with the right offensive line, we can make Najee Harris more than just a 1,000-yard runner, and 1,000-yard runner used to mean such a big thing in the NFL. And now it's just, he got 1,000 yards on the ground, now to his credit, the fact that he's done it 4 straight seasons is something that you just don't see around the NFL, mainly because of running backs by committee and durability issues and just not getting, not having a guy that be on the field with a good offensive line and a team that likes to run and stay committed to one running back. But, you add all that together with the fact that the Steelers did not put the 5th-year option on him back when they had a chance. They did not extend his contract prior to this season when they had a chance to do so. it feels like if indeed the Steelers do lose this game, that he will not be back.
Yeah, that's where I was at once they declined the option back in May. I know there was the whole wait and see idea that the team announced, or they didn't announce, but it got reported out that I assume came from the team. And I think Najee kind of made some hints that that's what the team had told him as well. That I never really believed in. I always kind of go back to, I know you talk about whenever it comes to receiver contracts, they've only done a couple of extensions on in-house guys, but the last in-house extension they did with a Steelers running back was Willie Parker in 2006. That still blows my mind. The last Steelers running back to be drafted, or to be internal and get extended out, didn't happen with Mendenhall. I know they tried with Bell, but ultimately it didn't happen. That whole saga, James Conner, et cetera, et cetera. So I think history will continue post Najee Harris.
Right.
All right, Dave, where to here? Any other things around with the team before we start previewing this game?
I think we can get into just kind of, talking about the game in of itself. And I think first and foremost, where I'd like to start is what more on the defensive side of the football here, because how big is it that the team has a guy like Deshaun Elliott for this game?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, to have your box safety, best tackler to defend this run game is huge in communication standpoint, and just kind of all the things that Elliott is going to bring you tangibly, intangibly. So yeah, is it going to make anyone pick Pittsburgh over Baltimore? No, but it's going to be a huge boost for a lot of reasons.
And look, for what does a Steelers win look like on Saturday night? Scoreboard wise, production from the Ravens offense side. I mean, it really does feel like this has got to be one of those old school 1916 or 22-18, 22-17 type of games if the Steelers are going to win this game, right? You got to minimize obviously the explosive plays, and over the last couple of games against them, they have given up what? Let's look back in this last game. Here, the Ravens had 4 explosive plays, and 2 of those were double explosive. You had to pass deep right to Zay Flowers for 49 yards. You had Derrick Henry left in for 44 yards. They had 2 others of Jackson to Flowers. This is important here. 2 of their 4 explosive plays went to Flowers in this game. Justice Hill had the other one left in, pushed out of bounds for 25 yards. So they had 4 explosive plays in this one. It seems like they had 4 or 5 explosive plays in that first meeting between the two that the Steelers ultimately won. Now the difference, obviously, they took the football away. We're not going to talk about a Steelers win regardless if they don't take the football away from the Ravens in this game and they don't turn the football over on offense. It goes without saying, I think we both can agree on this, but you've got to limit the explosive plays. And look, to their credit, the fact that they limited the Bengals to 0 explosive plays in that week 18 game against them played a huge part of why the Steelers had a chance at the end of the game to actually win that game. We have got to be talking about the Ravens maybe 3 explosive plays in this game at max, no double or triple or quadruple explosive plays in this game overall. And not having Flowers is a key aspect of this game. Lamar Jackson's going to hit you with a couple of 10, 12, 13 probably yard runs in this game. You just cannot let those be huge runs. But I mean, it starts first and foremost. Look, without a doubt, the Steelers offense, we've got to see better offense. But I mean, if you're not keeping the score down in this game, if you're keeping your defense on the field for 65, 70 plays in this game against this Ravens offense, things have probably gone the wrong way. I think it is huge that they got Ogunjobi for this game. I think it's huge that they've got Deshaun Elliott for this game. I think it's huge that Joey Porter, who went out early in this game, it seems back healthy and obviously playing again. That's huge. But we're not going to be talking about a Steelers win if they don't keep the score down. And part of that's going to be limiting explosive plays.
Yeah, to answer your question, what does a Pittsburgh win look like? It looks a lot like what that Bengals game could have been in week 18, or of course the week 11, 18, 16 victory. It's going to be that kind of caliber game. Now it's going to be a little flip because the Bengals are taking away the pass game, the Ravens are taking away the run game, big picture. But it's going to be about situational stops. It's third down, it's red zone, it's creating a splash play or two. So that's the model. I mean, there's not going to be anything secret I can give in this one that's going to, shock anyone in how Pittsburgh can win this game. Play clean offensively, win the turnover battle, play well in the red zone, get some stops, and punch the ball in yourself a couple of times. I mean, that's kind of the basic framework for how any underdog can try to pull off a big time upset. But yeah, defensively, I just think back to that Ravens the loss, a 34-17 loss, and I just think about how just poor with the run fits Pittsburgh were in that game. And they just were out of position. You got guys in the wrong gaps. You got guys not doing their job. Just so many unforced errors. And of course, you give a Ravens team with that kind of talent the opportunity to have a lane, then they're often running literally, and they awarded the tune of 220 in that game. So Pittsburgh is just smarter, more assignment sound, less mental errors, mistakes. Guys probably not trying to do too much. Cam said he did that, was guilty of that in the game. Then you might have a chance. And so hopefully, just from a framework standpoint, Pittsburgh's is strongerly built and can compete in this one because of that.
As far as the ground game goes in with Henry, that's obviously task number one here. You got to get that guy. You got to get these gaps filled. You got to try to get him to maybe bounce and go laterally as much as possible, because if he gets through the gap or one gap over without having to make huge bounce or cut and all, and he's downhill on you, that's where things spiral out of control. You want him trying to move as lateral as possible as you can against him. And if you're unable to do that, once again, and we've seen it, you roll back to the end of that game again. They were about to pull Derrick Henry out of that game against the Browns, and he made it even easier on him because he bust one for a touchdown. Long one in there. This guy is just, and he wears you down as well too. So this has got to start early. You got to hope that maybe you get him in enough situations behind the chains where it kind of limits what they want to do with getting him his touch total overall, and that kind of rolls back again to that first meeting between these two teams. What did he have touch total in that game? 8? Was it 18?
In the rematch?
In the first game.
It was 13 carries.
13.
But I don't know how many touches.
Let's see. He had, it was only 13 total touches in that game. Now, are you going to get that lucky again? Probably not. But, I mean, you've got to keep if Derrick Henry hits the 20 to 22 touch mark in this game, you've probably done something wrong.
Well, I mean, they're going to want to get Henry his touches, and I know game circumstance. I don't expect a situation where Pittsburgh is playing with this massive lead that gets Baltimore completely off their script. So, I mean, Henry may end up touching the 20 touch mark, but what I think you have to do to start this game is you got to set the tone. Think about that rematch. Remember, Henry busted those first couple of runs. You just felt like, okay, it's going to be a long day on those first 3 or 4 carries that Henry had. You got to come out and set the tone real early. Like, this is a Landon Roberts tooth chipper. Go out there and pop so and make a statement. Not that it's going to guarantee you're going to have success against Henry the rest of the day, but I think taking those body shots early is going to, really put things in their favor. It's in their place. Their crowd gets going. They start feeding off of that. So I think you really got to, those first couple of carries, just make your physical presence known of, okay, we're going to play a different style of game. We're going to play the week 11 game, which was physical and nasty and old school, that really felt like Steelers Ravens, rather than that rematch where it just felt like Baltimore was taking it to Pittsburgh all day long.
Well, if you remember the first 2 carries that he had against the Steelers in this most previous meeting, he went 6 and then 14. He had 20 yards off just 2 carries, and then they They got cute. Flowers left in for 3 yards, Jackson to Flowers for 14 yards. And then on the 1st and 10 at the Steelers 33, they were able to shut down Henry, no gain. Then they sacked Jackson, and that's the one that Highsmith forced the ball out, but they were unable to get the fumble recovery. They got him in a 3rd and extremely long situation, incomplete to Hill, and then they got off the field thanks to a punt, forcing them out of field goal range there. But then the second possession that they have, they still weren't able to get get Henry off of his game, because he went 11 yards. He went 13. I mean, these are plays all right in a row on first and 10, 11 yards, 1st and 10, 13 yards, 1st and 10, 9 yards. They went 5 straight runs on this guy. And then on the 6th play, they went Jackson to likely for a 9-yard touchdown. So yeah, it does have to start early. You do have to set the tone early. You can't let these 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 14-yard runs happen with you, because those are such big tone setters. You need to get them away from leaning on Henry heavily in the game.
Yeah, because if they're getting those results early, then imagine the results they get late, and that's just going to feed into Baltimore wanting to run this thing all day long. Get a couple of early stops. I'm not going to pretend like it's going to totally change their game plan. Baltimore's not going to panic. Todd Monken's a good OC. He's getting head coaching looks, but it might change the feeling of the game a little bit. So all easier said than done, but I think Pittsburgh's more gap sound in this one. They're a healthier bunch overall. It's something they're capable of doing.
And you got the ball hunt anytime you're after Lamar Jackson, as we've seen in the past over the years. If Lamar Jackson has a kryptonite, it's his ball security at times, whether it be in the pocket, whether it be on the hoof, running or what have you. You have got to get the likelihood of you getting Derrick Henry to fumble again, like you did in that first meeting, is probably very minimal, because that guy just doesn't normally fumble. Who is going to be responsible for the turnovers on Baltimore's side of the football overall in this game that are going to make differences? It's going to be Lamar Jackson, whether you rip the ball out on a strip sack or whether you get those hands up, tip passes up in the air for interceptions, or him just overthrowing, making bad decisions. For us to talk about a Steelers win on Monday, we're going to have to talk about Lamar Jackson turning this football over probably at least 2 times. Himself.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the MO overall, and getting red zone stops as well, and a red zone takeaway wouldn't hurt my feelings either. So I do hope, just to go back to Henry one more time, I think the last time I talked about it, I didn't think Pittsburgh focused in on Henry enough in the run game. There was a little too much attention paid to Lamar. I know it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, because they're both big time threats. But I think you got to still start with the back with Derrick Henry and go from there.
Nobody gets 100. Nobody has 100 on the stat sheet, receiving or rushing. It starts there. Now, I think you got to make Lamar Jackson get in situations in 3rd and long where he's trying to make plays. We have seen, especially in that earlier meeting, he wasn't sharp at times with some of his throws. We've seen him press it, but there's a lot of pressure on Lamar in this game. He's a front runner for MVP. He's got the whole talk about the playoffs thing, heading into this game and the performances he's had in the past. And, the last couple of games in the NFL playoffs, where a team by 9 or more points has been favored that ended up losing the game. Baltimore was on both sides of those games. In fact, the last NFL playoff game where a team was favored by 9 or 9.5 points and wound up losing was Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to the Tennessee Titans, and Arthur Smith was on the other side of that. That Derrick Henry was obviously on the look. Those stats mean nothing heading into this, but there is a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson to go into a playoff game and kind of win one that he's kind of supposed to win, if you will, here. And the other pressure here is nobody's given the chance. Nobody's given the Steelers really other than being a fan and getting hyped up for this as the week goes along and all. I mean, it really is hard to carve out a path, especially the way the Steelers offense has played as of late, to carve out a path, a reasonable way for the Steelers to win this game. So you've got the whole onus of, hey, Baltimore's supposed to win this game. And not only win this game, but really blowout, for lack of better words in this one here. So there is that pressure on him, and maybe that pressure, and plus it's going to be cold. That's something else to remember. And there is, even though the pressure's on the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, I do believe that is more Mike Tomlin's bag at this point for him to kind of tote here. But there is pressure, albeit a different type. I'd much rather be favored in these games than not favored. But there is, to some degree, heavy pressure on Lamar Jackson going into this game.
Sure. That's what we talked about top of the show, where it's kind of different kinds of pressure, but from the media, national expectation, pundit view perspective, the Ravens have all the pressure. Pittsburgh has zero pressure in this one because there's now zero expectations for Pittsburgh based on how both teams have wrapped up their seasons. I do like your comment, Dave. That should be on those T-shirts that Mike Tomlin makes each week to keep it under 100. Just as I'm sure those Florida State cops told you back in the day, keep it under 100, son. That's probably a similar phrasing to use for this one.
Right.
They tell you that? Keep it under 100?
Oh,
any speeding tickets? I don't know. I'm half sick here. I'm trying to work on a joke. I'll workshop it. All right, Dave. Anything else here in terms of Baltimore's offense? Again, don't want to overlook their weapons, even without Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman. The tight ends are excellent. I would expect Baltimore to still challenge Pittsburgh with the issues they had against them last time in terms of stacks and bunches and motions and switch releases. Pittsburgh did seem to have those things cleaned up against the Bengals. But for whatever reason, Pittsburgh has struggled more on the road. It seems to be with communication and being able to sort some of those things out. And so I think Baltimore will continue to show those looks to see if Pittsburgh can handle it against the Ravens again.
Right. Look, once again, I think for us to talk, in kind of wrapping this up, because look, I mean, we've already watched 2 games of this. I mean, these two, if there's any advantage for the Steelers in this, I mean, but it works both ways. These two teams do know each other well.
Yeah, I mean, there is some reason for optimism, and frankly, and my terrible take is on this today, Dave. I'm happy Pittsburgh drew Baltimore for the playoffs, not Houston. Not in the sense, obviously, I would have preferred Pittsburgh would have beaten the Bengals and lock up the 5 seed there, all that kind of stuff. But there's reasons to like Baltimore because Pittsburgh's still beaten them. What is it, 8 of the last 10 times? They beat them, of course, in the first matchup this year. And although that second one went sideways, it was 17-17 late in the third quarter. So it's not like Pittsburgh, there was a time where Pittsburgh got back into the game, then the Russ pick 6, and that kind of all fell apart from there. And yeah, the familiarity aspect of it as well. And then also, I just like that, okay, if Pittsburgh does win this game, there's no asterisks on, okay, you beat the Texans and they're not a good team and they're sliding too, and it doesn't really count. And that's how it'll kind of get perceived, even though I disagree with that. But if you beat Baltimore, that is a statement win. There is no, but people will point to Flowers being out, but still, Baltimore is still expected to win this game with or without Zay Flowers. And so I do kind of like still playing Baltimore to be like, okay, this is the matchup. This is what Pittsburgh's been waiting for. This is their chance. And if they want to take it, no one can take that away from them. And so there's still some, don't throw the towel in totally on this game.
All right. Either you're the older brother or you're the younger brother. It's a chance to, Mike Tomlin talked earlier in the week about the tax that you have to play by not winning the AFC North. You get an opportunity now to rectify to correct your woes of not winning the AFC North by beating Baltimore this time. So, I mean, it's right here in front of you now. And you look, what's the talk? I was thinking about this last night. What's the talk going to be? If the Steelers beat the Ravens, how much of that, here we talk about, the Steelers can't get the first, get a playoff win in forever. What does this do on the other side when you've got a team like the Ravens that, I mean, you can make a strong argument that this is the best team in the playoffs, along with the Detroit Lions right now heading into this. They are playing remarkable football right now. The Ravens are over the last several weeks. You look at what they're doing offensively. You obviously got player of the year candidate Lamar Jackson. What in your 9.5 point favorites over the Steelers? What does the discourse and the talk on the other side of the fence become if the Ravens lose this game?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be same old Ravens. Can't get the job done. Can't get over the hump. Really good regular season team. Lamar struggles to the playoffs, but I'll leave that all for the national pundits. But for Pittsburgh, and that's why, obviously, you don't, sweep aside the 4-game losing streak and all the issues. We talked about all the problems they're having and how terrible the slide has been. That's why I wrote back, I think before either right before or after the Chiefs game, that this isn't necessarily defining, because what Pittsburgh does or does not do in the playoffs is the defining part. If they lose, the streak continues, the criticism continues as it should. But if they win, then the whole narrative changes, and people kind of forget and care less about the how Pittsburgh got in the playoffs and just the fact that they won a playoff game against a potential Super Bowl contender in Baltimore. So yeah, this one game can literally change everything perception wise for both Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
All right, what do the Steelers need to do on the offensive side of football to win this game?
I think you got to figure out a run plan, and it's going to be hard to just run traditionally up the middle or whatever, variation, whatever scheme you want to use against this Ravens front, because they just are so darn tough overall. And this Ravens defense has gotten a whole lot better in general, since Dean Pease had a bigger influence really since the back half of the season. But that's why I think you have to look at a Justin Fields in this one and utilize him to try to, I hate to use the word spark because it is such a catch-all, vague kind of a term, but there's got to be some creativity to this run game to get that going, because you can't win this game without a run game, but you can't just beat your head into a wall for 30 straight duo runs either.
Where is the Ravens' most vulnerable aspect in the passing game?
Yeah, it's getting harder to find one, Dave. I mean, they've made some key changes, some personnel changes that have really helped jumpstart the second half of the season for them. They've done some stuff at off-ball linebacker with Harrison coming in to replace Simpson in the secondary. Humphrey's really now a slot corner almost exclusively, playing about 80% of his reps inside. You got Wiggins, who had a pick 6 last week, and Stevens on the outside. And then you got Hamilton playing more traditional safety. Probably look at going after Brandon Stevens in this game if you can create the matchup. He's a guy that's been picked on more so, and obviously, Humphrey's a top dude. I'd expect Humphrey to be shadowing Pickens in at least all the big down, third down type of situations. So if you're looking at a secondary in particular, you probably go after Brandon Stevens when you can.
Do you play Mike Williams more in this game finally?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, I think, Pittsburgh still had their MO of playing him at 11 personnel in those 3 receiver sets. And so that's where his snap counts are kind of tied to. When you had a heavier approach against the Bengals last week, where you wanted to try to run the ball, that's why Williams played a really small number of snaps and snap share overall. But yeah, I think you have to, again, burn all the boats kind of a thing. I mean, you appreciate Van Jefferson as a blocker, but you can't have Van, I think, outsnapping Mike Williams, 40 to, 15 in this game.
Where do the explosive plays come from the Steelers offense in this game? They've got to be the deep shots down the side. I'm with you. I think you need to try to attack Brandon Stevens every chance that you possibly can. Maybe sometimes where you don't, you're going to have some 50-50 ball wins. You got to have George Pickens come out of this game with at least 4 catches for 70, 80 yards. It feels like you're going to have 3, 4, 5 explosive plays. Where do those explosive plays come from in this game for the offense?
It's hard to dictate exactly that. I think you're going to see a lot of zone. I thought I had a good article, and Clayton did a fantastic job assisting in some of the research in the disparity between Russell Wilson's success against man coverage this year and his struggles against zone. Huge splits. Wilson much better against man than zone, and he's been seeing a lot more zone coverage lately because I think teams are realizing that. And Pittsburgh, I think schematically does not come up with great zone beaters in general. They're better in terms of beating man coverage and personnel and scheme and quarterback play than they are in zone. But can you flood some of these cover 3, looks and shells that Baltimore will play, especially on early downs. And so I think that's going to be key in this one. So I don't know exactly in terms of, obviously you need to get Pickens, explosive plays, and Austin can be that kind of guy, and maybe Fryermuth as well over the middle. But I think you got to have some good zone answers in this game that Pittsburgh has struggled to have throughout the season.
I talk about 66-0.
Yeah, it's my favorite stat, and I wish I could have talked about it more in the week. I know some of the papers in Pittsburgh got to talk about it, but I was laid up in bed. But yeah, 66-0 is the big number that sticks out to me, because that's the scoring. Pittsburgh's been outscored, I should say, 66-0 in their last 5 playoff games combined in the first quarter, and so they've not scored a single first quarter point in their last 5 games. Opposition scored 66, but Buffalo had 14-0 in last year's wild card game. So, Pittsburgh cannot, in the regular season, yes, they can dig themselves out of those holes sometimes, but against these playoff caliber teams in these, single elimination contests, you can't dig yourself that kind of a hole and expect to come out and win. And so Pittsburgh, I know we talk about fast starts every single week, and it's hard to be optimistic that this is the year it'll change, because they are starting slowly as ever before with, what did you say, 48? Is it 3 first quarter touchdowns and 48 first quarter points?
Was it 44 or 48?
It's 48. But with 3 first quarter touchdowns this year, 0 first drive touchdowns, second longest active streak in the NFL, only behind Seattle. I think Baltimore's 112 first quarter points this year. Nothing on paper suggests that trend is going to change, but it has to change. Not to Pittsburgh, although you would, of course, just love it if Pittsburgh was up 14-0 after the first quarter, but they can't be down 14-0, 17-3, something like that. You can't get punched in the mouth against these top caliber playoff teams and expect to come out on top.
Yeah, Josh and I talked the other day. You can maybe get down 6-0 on a team like the Ravens here in this game, but you can't get down 10-0, 14-0. Expect the Steelers to fight and claw back.
Not in Baltimore's place, too, where their crowd gets into it and really takes over.
Yeah, they've been outscored 112-48 in the first quarter of games. Their best quarter this year for the Steelers has been 121 points in the second quarter. If you're not going to score points in the first quarter of this game against Baltimore, you damn sure better score them in the second. If you flip over to the to the Ravens, they have 88 versus 46 points in the first quarter of games, and in the second quarter of games this year, 164 points for the Ravens this year. So you've got to put pressure on Lamar Jackson in this game, and by pressure I mean just overall game pressure. I mean, it goes without saying that you've got to get pass rush pressure on him. TJ Watt's coming off of a not, statistical wise, not a great run of games. He has played well overall against the Ravens. Obviously for his career, he's going to have a big one in this. But I mean, we have got to talk about this offense somehow being able to manufacture explosive plays. I would like to see them try to use a little bit of this quick game more. Whether it be quick wide receiver screens out to George Pickens, especially early, to get him involved. You got to try to get the football in Jaylen Warren's hands, I think, out in space. You've got, if you're not manufacturing explosive plays in this game, I would like to see Mike Williams see the field more in this game and try to utilize his big play capability. Mike Tomlin tried to give that lip service early in the week, but how many times have we heard that, this could be the week that we see an uptick in play? I mean, what did he play in this last game? 14 snaps or whatnot?
And it was his lowest percentage of snaps since his debut in week 10 against Washington.
Right. So, I mean, it has got to be a burn the boats game. You've got to do everything in your power to kind of change things overall from what you've done in the past. If you don't, it's going to be a quick one and done for you.
I'm trying to figure out which number disturbs me more in that 66-0, the 66 or the 0-1, where Pittsburgh's given up 66. One of those might have been. There was the Browns 28-0 lead. There was some of the weirdness there in the first quarter, the snap from Pouncey, but still, you give up 66 and you've scored 0. You got to score a point here in the first quarter of a playoff game. You can't go 6 straight playoff games without scoring a single first quarter point. So, yeah, I'm not saying you have to, again, be up 14-0, but even if it's 10-7 Baltimore at the end of the first quarter, all right, I'll take it. It's just a different kind of shift, different type of game you'll play than the ones you've been losing.
Right.
Anything else here for Pittsburgh's offense? Obviously, you just got to take care of the football. I mean, it's underrated and it's obvious in some sense too. But Pittsburgh, during when they were 10-3, they were plus 16, plus 17 in turnover differential, and during the losing streak, they're -1 or so. And so Pittsburgh, they do not win when they can't win the turnover battle, and that one mission is of course taking the football away. The other one is taking care of the ball and doing so, especially in the critical moments, not those points situations that happened in that Week 16 loss and happened in the Chiefs game, etc.
All right. I'm with you. I mean, if they don't win the turnover battle, we got to see the Tox stat at the end of this be +3 Steelers. It feels like to have a chance to win it, to win this game. You roll back to this last game. Last game, obviously Russell Wilson putting the football on the field deep down in Ravens territory. You had the pick six to Marlon Humphrey. That kind of stuff just can't happen. You got to play one of the cleanest games you played all season to win this game.
Yeah, and then special teams. You got to be better there. The coverage units have to be better. They've been a mess. I think Waitman has to be better than he has been. Boswell, of course, is excellent, but the complementary units beyond that have to be just as good.
All right. Real quick I wanted to let me send you the final Justin net yards for passing attempt stats for the season here based on the regular season, and kind of get your thoughts overall on that stat. I mean, the stat came through again, right? I mean, if you look at the adjusted net yards differential, you look at the teams and their offensive numbers here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the playoff teams finished in the top 16 of differential of the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat. None of the teams finished with a negative number. Believe it or not, the Kansas City Chiefs of the playoff teams had the lowest differential, an even. They were 5.9, 5.9 on offense, defense, a dead even differential. The Chiefs are the most vulnerable team, I think, especially on the AFC side heading into the playoffs. This is not your uncle. This is not the Chiefs of the last couple of years overall. They've been kind of more smoke and mirrors. Their defense has been good, and they've been able to convert third downs. But I think just the main takeaway here is people get mad at me at talking so much about the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, and its viability. It won again, Alex. It won again.
It never loses. It's constant, and its staying power is legit, and it's one of the best individual metrics to look at as a predictor of success, where you could look at these numbers, not watch the entire season, and have a pretty good guess of who the best teams and the worst teams in football were. And who's number one in this stat on the season, Dave?
Baltimore Ravens in 9.3. At some point, you think, man, that they're not going to be able to hold that number on into the playoffs. It's going to counteract itself at some point. You need it to. You're not going to win this game if Lamar. If Lamar comes out of this game with an individual adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number of 7.5 or better, you're not going to win. I don't think you're going to win this game. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, I don't think, because the fact of the matter, to think that Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense would be able to match that number on the offensive side feels kind of crazy, So we're going to have to see, Lamar Jackson come back to earth in the sacks, in the interceptions, in the completion percentage department on Saturday night for the Steelers to win this game.
Sure. Who was the last team to have that quality of an offensive ANYA?
For a regular season, I mean, it's rare to see a team come out. Well, I'll have to go back and look, but I mean, 9.3 for a season. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, that's 1.2 higher than the next highest ranked team, Detroit, at
Right.
8.1.
I mean, it's history tells you it's not sustainable, but here we are, a 17-game week season, and Lamar's not missed any games, right? I mean, he sustained it.
Right,
Now they're
So,
not going to have one of their receiving weapons in Zay Flowers. That's still a pretty big part of this game, I think.
and he's not missed a game this year, and so they're going to have
Right.
to get kind of adjust to playing without him, something they haven't had to do, which isn't the most. They can overcome that, but that's always something unique when they're that first game without a guy of, okay, this is how it feels, this is how defenses play us, and there can be some adjustments and feeling out in that process as well. All right, David, any other
And
final thoughts?
they like to use him a lot toward coming towards the middle of the field as well too, whether it be in breaking slants, whether it be digs underneath crossers and all like that. That's a big component of where they've been able to hit in the middle of the field with Flowers.
Yeah, he's a big 10, 15-yard dig kind of a guy, run after type of a guy, and obviously they won't have that this weekend. So any other final thoughts here, Dave?
No, I think we should get to our picks for the rest of the weekend here.
All right, let's make our picks, and then of course we'll save our Steelers Ravens picks for last.
All right, Chargers on the road against the Texans. Chargers go on the road, 3-point road favorites.
And I think the Texans were my Super Bowl pick before the year began. I'm going to stick with him just based off of that for at least this week. Give me Houston.
All right, I'll take I'll take the Chargers to lay the 3 points and win. I just think their defense too good to shut down the Texans running game, and they should have that okay. Broncos go on the road against the Bills, another big line. Bills 8.5-point favorites at home against rookie Bo Nix.
Yeah, that Broncos defense is legit, and you do wonder kind of what Josh Allen has to work with outside of really just himself. I mean, it's been a good collection of scheme and talent coming together. I'll say Denver covers, but Buffalo wins.
I'll take Buffalo and lay the 8.5 points. I think they pull away late. I think they kind of confuse Knicks in this game. Buffalo more apt to make more explosive plays and kind of get Denver in a situation with their press. Packers on the road against the Eagles. Eagles laying 5.5 points at home against the Packers, who they're not going to have Christian Watson.
Yeah, torn ACL, terrible for him, but Jalen Hurts will play for the Eagles. Give me the Eagles, Dave.
I think the Eagles win this, but give me the Packers plus the 5.5. I think they can keep this close. Washington Commanders on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers laying 3 at home against the Commanders.
Be a good one. I'm not too confident in this one. Washington and Pittsburgh both have active, identical 5-game postseason droughts. I wonder if either team will be able to break it this week. I will take Tampa Bay, Dave.
I'll take Washington in an upset here. I'll take the plus 3 points here. All right. This game got moved to Arizona. Vikings technically on the road against the Rams. The Vikings 2.5-point favorites, coming off of kind of a beatdown against the Lions to wrap up the season here. Rams have been kind of playing some, who would have known we would have got here from the time that all that talk about Cooper Kupp and them blood, but here they are. They're hosting a home playoff game after winning the NFC West. Rams are 2.5-point underdogs, so Vikings favored by 2.5.
And we hope all of our California listeners are okay in those devastating fires. I checked in with Dr. Mel, and she's okay as of now. So fingers crossed, obviously, for everything that to continue. That's why the game has been moved. I know Minnesota's smarting from that loss against Detroit and missing out on the 1 seed. I'll take Minnesota to bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, I'll go with you in Minnesota late at 2.5. I think they're just too put together too good of a team overall. I'll take Minnesota there. All right, that rolls us back to the Steelers on the road against the Ravens. Right now, DraftKings has this 9.5 points for the Ravens. What say you on this one?
Yeah, I don't want to give Pittsburgh no chance in this one. I think there are some reasons to talk about why they can compete, given their track record against Baltimore, how known of an opponent it is. They beat them earlier this year. The second game, even, they had their opportunities, and they just had some unforced errors, those critical turnovers that really hurt them. If they can avoid that, it can be a different story in this one. But David, go back to my preseason prediction, which I backed into, predicting a 10-17, a wild card team, and one that ultimately would not win a playoff game. And I will stand by that until proven otherwise, proven wrong. I got Baltimore winning this one 27-17.
Okay, 10 points. So you have actually Baltimore covering that then too, don't you? Alex, you got to be out of your right mind to come up with some sort of scenario here other than just fandom. I mean, we've broken it down. We've looked at both these teams twice already this season. We've gone through what it would take for the Steelers to win this game. I don't know. You got to be crazy to think the Steelers can win this game from an objective standpoint.
Oh,
I'm crazy. I am crazy. I've talked myself into, especially with Flowers being out here, the motivation. Imagine the motivation on the Steelers side right now. Mike Tomlin needs this game. The Steelers need this game. Pittsburgh needs this game. They need to play a perfect game. They've got all these components back on defense. I think Lamar Jackson's going to press a little bit in this game overall. I'm nuts. I'm nuts, Alex. I'm gonna pick the Steelers 23-20 in this game. I'm absolutely crazy. Right. I got no reason. I'm foolish. It's the most stupid pick I've ever made, I think, probably in the history of this show. I don't know. You kind of get these gut feelings about this thing. This team, Mike Tomlin better get this win. If he doesn't get this win, Alex, what's the talk? I mean, what's the talk all offseason?
I mean, it's the same talk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we don't know what the talk's going to be. It's just going to be more of it, and it gets another brick gets added each time it occurs. No, I appreciate the boldness.
I've lost my mind. 23-20 Steelers.
All right, somebody's picking Pittsburgh, and I can appreciate that. You remind me of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Either I'm dead right or I'm crazy.
Right.
That's Dave right now. You're kind of pulling a Chewbacca defense on me. It does not make sense. But
it does not make sense. Right. Exactly. Why would you pick the Steelers 0-4 in their last 4 games, not playing great at all on offense, against a team like the Ravens, who have just been motoring the last second half of the season here at home in the playoffs? It does not make sense.
And I want to believe that, but I feel like we've had the same conversation each time we made our picks the last couple of games. So they're going to beat the Chiefs because they need this game. They got to beat the Bengals and need this game. They got to beat the Ravens in Week 16. They can clinch the division. They need this game, and it just has not happened. But one game, it's single elimination. It is a new slate, and yeah, we'll see what happens. These games are typically close, and so if it comes down to that, that's the type of game Pittsburgh will prefer to play, low scoring and close, and make a play late. So I hope you're right.
My confidence level is is not high, but they got to figure out a way to win this game. They just absolutely got to figure out. And look, if they get blown out, oh my God. I mean, it's bad enough to lose this. I mean, does it matter how you lose this game? As far as the backlash after, I mean,
there's the moral victory in the playoffs for a team like Pittsburgh that was 10-3. No, I mean, I get it. Obviously, the feeling might be a little bit different, but the conversation really shouldn't change.
Right. All right. You feel good enough to take some emails or no?
Yeah, let's just do a couple. We got the All-Pros coming out. I want to be ready for that. I really hope Oswald gets All-Pro first team, but I'm still worried that Aubrey might get it for Dallas, but I want to make sure I'm around for that when that drops in about 20 minutes. Let's go to a couple quick emails, Dave.
All right. Let's see. Nolan McAdams. Hey, Dave and Alex, I just want to tell you the issue with the offense seems systematic. Offensive line doesn't perform consistently. The quarterback is holding on to the ball too long, which is something both of you commented on prior to the season. Also, the play calling seems uninspired and repetitive. Runs on 1st and 10. And look, that's another thing we hit on first down. This team is just absolutely miserable.
Worse than football.
On first down. Whenever Cordell Patterson comes in on 1st and 10, it's a pitch for 1 yard, so it's 2nd and 9. The team repeats plays. This team lacks talent so much, and as much as a lot of Steeler fans grumble about Pickens, he's the only legit offensive wideout the team has. So I get tired of the trade him and get someone else in there. Pickens is the only alpha as a weapon on the outside. I'd be irritated to be on this pitiful tech Tecmo Bowl offense too. Alex, that reference of Tecmo Bowl, he says, maybe before your time. It's a game on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. The team needs a lot of help on offense, and I don't even know where to begin with. Thank you for allowing me to rant. So Nolan had to get that rant off his chest there. So save you some save your vocal cords there, Alex. Ryan from Tulsa, looking back at this year, I wonder if signing Adam Thielen, aka great value Hines Ward, would have been what we needed. 48 receptions, 615 yards, and 5 TDs, and from all the reports, a good locker room guy and someone to help Pickens learn to be a pro. So he's Ryan. I'll save you some vocal cords there. He basically says he wonders what would have happened had the Steelers gone out and traded for Adam Thielen. Lane is back in here. Hope you guys are doing well. Personally, I think this week's playoff game versus the Ravens is a very winnable game, Lane says. I know all the talking heads in the media give the Steelers no chance, but I think anyone who watched football at all should know that when it comes to the Steelers versus Ravens, anything can happen. That is indeed true, Lane. This rivalry is always a 50-50 game. The Steelers do not have to play perfect to win this game by any means. Lane says earlier this year, the Steelers beat the Ravens and didn't even score a touchdown. Great point. These games always come down to 3 to 5 plays that decide the game. How confident are you, guys, that the Steelers will win? I picked them, but it's more... I don't have a great reason, Lane. Alex's analysis and prediction of this game is a lot more sounder than mine is. I'm just taking the crazy, they could win it, fandom. But look, I mean, these teams know each other, right, Alex?
Yeah, it's not like if Pittsburgh does win this, it's not like it's not this insane idea that Pittsburgh can beat Baltimore. All Pittsburgh has done 8 out of the last 10 times is beat Baltimore, and including earlier this year. So yes, that Baltimore's playing their best, Pittsburgh's playing their worst, but it's not like obscene to think about that Pittsburgh can win this game.
Now it is the largest point spread in the NFL this week and all like that, and it would be deemed a huge upset overall. But it's not unthinkable, right?
No, it's not, and that's why there's some cream. That's why I said I can in some sense prefer playing Baltimore, but not only to avoid the narrative of some Mickey Mouse win over the Texans, but also because of the how known the opponent is, and that can create some. Can maybe mitigate the talent gap a little bit because these two teams are so known.
All right.
And Pittsburgh's defense is, done well against Lamar and all that kind of stuff. So we can't forget about all those things either.
Right. A couple of takeaways can turn the tide. Short fields in this thing, and nobody hits 100. I think we need to be talking about that if the Steelers win this. You can't let Derrick Henry obviously run over you, but I mean it's not impossible to come up with or to think about the Steelers beating the Ravens.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's just highly improbable probably this time. But all right, Bryce. Hey guys, it's Bryce. Can't wait for tomorrow night to add another chapter in Steelers Ravens. So here's my question. When it comes down to it, do you think Pat Freiermuth can be a clear number 2 option for an offense that can lead a team on a deep playoff run? He says, I wrote in about this earlier in the year, and now the season is over. I'm still in the mindset that his ceiling skill set leans to being clear number 3, not a clear number 2. He wants to talk about can lead this team on a deep playoff run. I mean, let's get past this week first and foremost. Second, we knew that there was a good chance that he was going to finish second on the team in receptions this year, right? Because of the way this team was built.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, he wants to know, I guess, moving forward, can he be a clear number 2 in the offense moving forward? It feels like this team just needs another wide receiver to, assuming George Pickens stays, to complement him. You need 2 good receivers, and then Pat Freiermuth is not George Kittle. He is not Travis Kelce. He's not Mark Andrews.
Yeah, he's not dynamic in that sense. They're gonna need another receiver, so I don't know exactly how you want to divvy up number 2, number 3, but it can't just be Pickens type, Freiermuth, and that's it. This year's kind of proof of that. So they need more, obviously, and that has to be a big offseason mission.
All right. Once again, 15 minutes from now is when the all-pro stuff comes out, so we want to be ready for that. Alex is a trooper for going an hour and 30 minutes in this show here. We'll be back. Things will move really, really fast either way. Either we'll move on, talk about the Steelers' next round of the playoffs. If they win, if they lose, we'll obviously recap that. We'll start getting hard and heavy into free agent list and talk about the annual kind of end of the year stuff that we talk about. But rest assured, we're going to have something to talk about on Monday. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Once again, Alex, appreciate you being a trooper. Feel better by the weekend here, and we'll be back on Monday. And until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.